Are you gay, a femboy, have trauma, mental issues, heterosexual? Don't worry, Judeau's got you. We all need a Judeau in our lives. I would trust him with my darkest yaoi secrets. We all can trust Judeau. Every time I reread Berserk, I end up loving him more and more, that I had to make a video gushing over him, analyzing the beauty and tragedy of his character. And despite what happened in the eclipse, Judeau got a beautiful ending and conclusion to his character arc he goes through in the Golden Age arc, it being about fate, which many other characters go through it as well. But with Judeau, I felt at peace with the conclusion. But before I delve deeper into that, I want to explore every Judeau scene, starting with Judeau's first appearance, chapter 13. And my god, does his first appearance make me sad, looking back on it. His first words were talking about Casca and helping Guts understand her situation. He's so sweet. I still question how no other guy in the Band of the Hawk wasn't gay for him. Very unrealistic of Mura. But putting my gay thoughts aside, his first interaction perfectly encapsulates Judeau's character. He's a very understanding and caring person. He could have not said anything at all, but he goes out of his way to make Guts understand why Casca did what she did. He wants to lessen the burden on Casca, even if by a bit, as he's the only one that cares and understands before Guts came along. As next page, we have Judeau saying Griffith ordered Casca to warm Guts, saying it's a woman's duty, despite Griffith knowing full well Casca's situation, yet he still ordered her. What's interesting is that Judeau was repeating Griffith's words, and in the end, threw one of his throwing knives, breaking something, apologizing for his aim. But we later find out his aim is very good, yet his first appearance we see the opposite. I believe he was genuinely mad at Griffith in this moment. This scene gets recontextualized when we know how much he cares for Casca, and to see Griffith order Casca to do that led to this reaction from Judeau, showing this angry side we never really see of him, as he is always wearing a smile even in the toughest times, as shown multiple times in the darkest moments. God, I love rereading Berserk, as I always have a different perspective on certain scenes, and it's not just Casca he cares about, as the next scene we see Judeau in is him being one of the first to approach Guts, and trying to get him to join the rest of them, and asking Pippin to carry him. Next day he even checks up on him again, asking him how he feels about all this, if he fits in, and even describing Griffith that it makes me think, are you a fucking psychologist, Judeau? I wouldn't even mind if he gaslights me into thinking I'm gay. One theory I have about why Judeau is so perceptive is it's a skill he acquired, as he mentioned once in the future he wasn't a troop. Being an entertainer definitely requires one to be more perceptive, as it's his job to reel in people and entertain them, thus making him more perceptive. And what I find interesting in this moment where Judeau talks about Griffith is that Griffith is the only one he can't get a read on, but he also can at the same time, and this might be why he joined the Band of the Hawk in the first place. This unknown called out to him. The next thing he says to Guts remains one of my favorite lines in Berserk, as there's this sincerity to it that almost feels unmatched in anything. Judeau saying, I'm sure you'll find it here, the place where you belong. Again, he's so fucking cool, and if that doesn't convince you how cool Judeau is, next scene is Judeau approving of yaoi showers, watching Guts and Griffith play. We all need a yaoi approver in our lives. After this, next scene is Judeau noticing the change in Casca, with her worrying over Guts, something the old Casca would never have done, and seeing the relationship between Guts and Casca growing, it's so bittersweet, knowing how he feels about her, and that's what makes him an amazing and a tragic character. Judeau already accepted that he can't do anything else to help Casca, but support her on the path she's on, despite not wanting her to be on this path in the first place. So him seeing Casca change and breaking free from Griffith's control made him happy, as he thought it was impossible, as he's fully aware how Casca views Griffith, that her feelings are more like worship, thus his support with Guts and Casca, and even escalating it, as shown in the next scene with Judeau handing Casca elf dust to put on Guts. Again, Judeau could have handed it to Guts for him to do it himself, but he specifically went to Casca, as he wants her to see more of the world, you can say. He's guiding her in a different path, that there's more to life than being a mercenary. Also, I brushed over the fact that Judeau met Puck. When I first read this, I lost my mind, as I just find that so cool. Time to put on my tinfoil hat and try to get a deeper meaning from this. I believe Judeau met Puck for one reason, and it relates to one of the themes of Berserk, and it's about fate. Fate is a big theme in Berserk, where everyone's fate is determined, but not everyone accepts this fate. There are many that just flow with it, as shown with everyone who follows Griffith later, but there are those we call strugglers, those that don't yield to fate and fight against it. Guts, Silat, Ricker, and so many more. And Judeau is one of them. Well, he used to be. And that's why I believe Puck and Judeau met. As I always felt, Puck tends to meet those that defy fate. And about what I said moments ago, how Judeau used to be one that defied fate. That's what I believe after rereading all his scenes. And it's his character arc that he goes through in the Golden Age arc. And it can be seen in this next scene of Judeau. When Guts left the Band of the Hawk, Judeau approaches Guts and asks why he's leaving, as he wants to at least understand why he's leaving. Again, I love him. After hearing Guts' explanation, he accepts. He doesn't laugh at Guts' dream, he encourages him and wishes him luck. He's sad that he was wrong, this wasn't the place where he belongs, which then brings us to Judeau's dream, wanting to be the best at something. While it wasn't told in great detail what he wanted to be the best at, that alone tells us he was a struggler at one point, trying to fight all the odds that were against him. But as time passed, he gave up and decided to fly in the wake of someone who seems the best. And these two panels, my god, this is such peak symbolism. The way I interpret this is the flame represents that person who is the best, or trying to be the best. In this case, Griffith. The flame is lit, showing they still have that passion that Judeau once had. And next panel is Judeau's knife and his reflection on it. And we can see the flame of the candle shining on the knife, depicting Judeau's situation. Rather than being the flame, he decided to just let that passion slash flame he once had be directed onto him by someone else. And he has such a neutral expression in this drawing. As he himself said, despite his situation, he's pretty happy with things. Again, he's amazing, but you know what this tells me? The fact that half his face was only reflected on the knife tells me he's on the fence about his situation and stands on fate, can say. He hasn't yielded to it or struggled against it. He's hanging on the balance, and that's the character arc I believe Judeau goes through in the Golden Age arc, and he finds his answer in the end because of Guts. So the person Judeau thought was the best was Griffith, thus why he's with him, surrounding himself with that flame. But then here comes Guts, someone who also is sitting by that flame, but instead of being satisfied with just that, he decides to leave the Band of the Hawk in search of his own thing, and even confronting Griffith and winning against him, showing Judeau it's never too late. But Judeau didn't have the option to just leave, considering Guts just left. Judeau is a very caring and loyal person. It's his greatest strength, but also his greatest weakness. Thus, he will continue down his path of being a member of the Band of the Hawk till the very end, surrendering himself to this fate, which is why he was on board with the rescue mission of saving Griffith no matter the risks, and also why he didn't want Guts to force himself to come back, as Guts is a flame to Judeau just like Griffith is. Where Griffith represents what Judeau wished to be, Guts is what Judeau wants to do. He respects his decision to leave for his own thing, as it's a path he thought was impossible anymore for him, and Guts is that hope, a beacon for him, and it makes him happy to see Guts found his own thing, and didn't want him to feel obligated to return. He doesn't want to make him carry a burden, as shown when Rickard tried telling Guts. Griffith became depressed after he left, and Judeau stops him. The same with Casca. He also doesn't want her to burden herself anymore, willing to take that burden away from her by taking care of Griffith, and wanting Guts to take her away, by force if he has to. Judeau by this point of the story already surrendered himself to this fate, taking in everyone's burdens and being loyal to the Hawk, making sure it doesn't die out. But there's a big twist. It turns out he has been struggling against his fate all this time. The Band of the Hawk dying was fated to happen, as shown with the eclipse. What Judeau thought was his fate wasn't. All this time he was being defiant towards his fate, and in his final moments he became what he wished he could do, take the path Guts did, which is why for the first time in the Golden Age arc he says something Guts would say, and I quote, "Struggle, keep struggling, and struggling until the end of ends, then struggle some more. There's no fighting just to die." I love Muro so much. Judeau in the end found his answer, regaining that flame he thought died out. Turns out it was burning the entire time. He just couldn't see it all this time, but once he does see it, he fights to the very end and tells Casca as long as she's alive, they aren't finished. He's fighting against his fate, fully aware now, which is why I believe he smiled when he asked if his last knife hit, and Casca responded, saying yes, it killed him. He smiles, knowing he can fight against fate, fight against all the odds. He didn't just resign himself like he thought he was doing this entire time. He's even happy when he sees that he lit a flame inside Casca as well, when she repeats his words back to him. And despite his death and tragedy of never getting the chance to tell Casca that he loved her, I still see his ending as beautiful, as his will isn't dead yet. As he said it himself, as long as Casca is alive, they aren't finished. Which is why I believe the reason his last words to Casca were, and I quote, "You sure do cry a lot," was him even till the very end remaining true to his core. Fate wasn't able to break him or his values. To the very end, he remains a caring and loyal person, trying to lessen the burden on everyone and fight against anything, even fate. Which is why his last words was in a way telling Casca that there's no reason to cry for him, as he said, as long as she's still alive, he's still alive, lessening her burden in a way by saying this line, which seems very joke-like. Even the fact that it was until the very end that the viewers learned Judeau loved Casca this entire time is very Judeau-like. He's very perceptive / caring of everyone, and every scene we see of him was him trying to understand everyone else by talking to them or just being a good friend to them. And it was until the very end do we the viewers finally learn something intimate about Judeau, and this is why I find his conclusion beautiful and remains one of my favorite side characters in all media. We all need a Judeau in our life, and I love him so much that I had to make this video. I hope anyone who watched this video at least learned something new, hearing my perspective on his character.